There's an interview between Tucker Carlson and Andrew Tate that's getting all sorts of attention. It has 25, 30 million views over at Twitter. It's the biggest episode of Tucker's show that he's done on Twitter for probably a couple of months. And it's fascinating. It's really, really long. It's like 2.5 hours long. So we pulled a few of the clips to analyze them. Here's a little bit of it.
It's a very uncertain situation to be picked up on just before New Year's Eve and thrown in a cell without charge. And I'm asking different prison guards and different prisoners, how long am I going to be here? One prisoner was like, I've been here 2 years. I was like, have you been charged? He goes, yeah, but I haven't gone to court yet. Like, everyone's been there for years. I thought I was going to be there for years. And it certainly takes a mental toll on you. And I think jail is a different experience when you know you're innocent. There was a guy in there for murder. He's like, yeah, I murdered someone, I'm in jail. You can your soul and your mind can accept the punishment for a crime. But when you've actually done nothing wrong, I think jail is a lot harder.
I mean, one of the things that makes Tate sort of an interesting person and character is this tough-minded approach that he projects toward everything. Now, as far as the actual specificity of the charges, my understanding is that his characterization of the charges is not what the Romanian government is saying what the charges are. You would expect that. Obviously, he's defending himself, so it's not a giant shock that his account of the charges is somewhat different than theirs. And there are also some civil suits against him in Britain regarding sexual assault and all the rest. I'm sure the details of this are going to come out over time. But he was held in jail for a couple of months, and then he was released, but he is still undercharging. So, again, the outcome is less than assured.
What is the Matrix?
Good question. I guess some Americans call it the deep state, but I like to look at it in a more global way. When I say the Matrix, I think there are certain agendas which are being pushed. I think the media machine and the judicial systems of the world work together hand in hand. I think the goal is to control people's minds to a point where they don't discuss anything that's important.
Now, again, a lot of what he is saying right here is true, Andrew Tate. I mean, there is an overwhelming consensus between members of the media and members of the government and members of corporate America. And that's true globally as well. And they can create a narrative that just is not true. We saw this with the Trump-Russia narrative. We saw this with the idea that everyone, including small children, had to be vaxxed for COVID or everyone was going to die and all of the rest. He's not wrong about that. I think that he over-attributes to the Matrix. In other words, every symptomatic failure is obviously attributable to the Matrix. So it's again, I think that there is such a thing as middle-level bureaucracy in the United States government who are responsible for doing bad things. Does that mean that every bad thing that happens is attributable to that middle-level bureaucracy? I don't think so. But his overall take that there are forces at work that are consolidated with one another and pursuing certain narratives, obviously that's true, and that's one of the reasons his message is popular.
Why do you think support for the war in Ukraine, support for Ukraine's side in the war against Russia, support for a war against Russia in the West, is kind of the bottom line issue for the people who run the U.S. government and for the American media? Why? I mean, I guess you could argue about it, but there isn't an argument about it in the United States. There's a position, and anyone who doesn't hold it is attacked and punished. Why? Why is that so important?
Well, the first thing I think we should all do is I think we should all give Putin credit for curing COVID, right? Because when his invasion happened, COVID went away.
So thought about that.
Think about it. It's almost to the day. So we have to give him some credit at least for doing that. He may be the bad guy of the world, but at least he cured COVID for everybody nearly instantly.
Fair.
Thank you, President Putin. I, up until this point, never really commented too heavily on politics.
Yes.
But I understand very well, I like to believe what's happening with Ukraine and Russia. And what I will say to the people who are watching this at home is that if you are naive enough to believe that there are good guys and bad guys in wars, and it's as simple as good and bad, and that the bad guys are crazy and the good guys want freedom, then you need to do a little bit more investigation into what's really happening. And when you look at the vested interest of any country or any person...
Can I just ask you to pause and just comment? That's the truest thing, what you just said. That is and anyone who doesn't understand that should shut the up. And I mean it. Having seen war, anyone who's telling you that it's Churchill versus Hitler is an idiot.
Okay, but even in Tucker's last statement, that everyone telling you that it's Churchill versus Hitler, but that was the case where you had an actual evil person versus forces of good on one side. So Tate is making a global statement that there's never any conflict in which it's good versus evil, or in which one side is completely right and the other side is completely wrong. That it's all more complex than that. I think that's always true. I think there are certainly cases in which one side is right and the other side is wrong. I think that happens actually fairly frequently. Now, does that mean there isn't complexity to every war, or that the rationales that are presented to the public for war are the same as the rationales behind closed doors? No. But the kind of generalized moral relativism that is being expressed there is something with which I fully disagree. World War II was not a battle between two sides who had competitive but understandable versions of what was true. World War II was a battle between a fascist force that wished to wipe every Jew off the planet and a force that wished to preserve Western democracy and civilization. I mean, that is what World War II was. The same thing happens to be true with regard to, for example, the Civil War. One side in the Civil War wanted to preserve slavery. The other side in the Civil War wanted to overrun slavery. Now, is there more complexity than that? Yeah, sure, there's more complexity than that, but the overall narrative is not false. And what I see here is that complexity, the scales of gray, are being used to eliminate the colors black and white. Now, if you want to say that there is gray to the picture, that's fair. That's fine. I mean, there's gray to World War II also. There's the phony war that occurred when the West seemed to be wanting to appease Hitler, right? There's a lot of stuff happening in the lead up to any war. But in the end of the day, if you're deciding which side you want to side with, a moral component does exist. And eliminating that moral component is, I think, a mistake and a straw man.
You've said depression isn't real, or it's not, as the way we describe depression isn't accurate. What do you think of depression?
When I say depression isn't real, that really upset the world, especially the liberals, because they all live on medication, right? When I say depression isn't real, I'm saying that because I don't believe in things that can take away power from me. If I believed in depression, I would have been depressed in jail. But I can't be depressed if I don't believe in it. If you don't believe in ghosts, how can you be haunted? You have two people in a haunted house. One believes in ghosts, one doesn't. There's a knock in the night. One wakes up, calls an exorcist, is terrified, looks for a ghost. The other guy doesn't believe in ghosts. Knock in the night, goes back to sleep. It's the belief in the ghost that gives it the power. If I don't believe in depression, I believe in feeling depressed. Sure, we're humans, we have emotions. Sometimes we feel depressed, sometimes we feel happy. I don't believe in the idea of becoming a depressed person who has depression. I don't believe in that. I don't think that's possible for me. So if I don't believe in it, how can it happen?
Okay, again, I think that's spoken to somebody who doesn't have depression. So I don't have depression either, but there are certainly people who are manic depressives, right? That's an actual mental condition where people go from absolute mania to absolute depression. Now, one of the things that he is saying that I generally agree with is that very often depression should be overcome with cognitive behavioral therapy, right? That's actually what he's talking about there, is where you say, listen, my chain of thought here is wrong, and so I'm going to correct that chain of thought. But the idea that depression just overall doesn't exist if you ignore it, for some people, it pretty clearly does. And sometimes it's caused by, tragic life events, and sometimes it's caused by actual brain issues. But to kind of dismiss wholesale all depression, again, I think this one is actually more complex, and I think foreign policy is a little bit less complex than he's suggesting. So yeah, are there people who require medication for depression? Yes. Is it way fewer than the number of people who are currently taking medication for depression? I think also yes. So he's right that for a person who does not suffer from preconditions that lead to depression, or person doesn't have manic depression, or something like that the way to overcome depressive states is to kind of work your way through it. That obviously is true, but that's not even in conflict with, sort of the best of psychotherapy.
So men are replacing genuine sexual relationships with just the computer screen and porn, and it's becoming a very, very big problem. And that's also exasperated by the fact that I think the sexual marketplace has become globalized. This is the thing I say to young men. A lot of men come to me with problems, and my only answer to them is masculine excellence. I say that in the world we live in today, being a normal man or below normal is going to be terrible. You have to be an exceptional man, because the sexual marketplace, especially, even if you just want to find a wife, is globalized. If you, in 1955, if you met the hot girl in the Nebraskan town, she was the hot girl in the Nebraskan town. If you meet her today, she's being offered to go to Courchevel and go skiing in France, and she's being offered to fly to Dubai, and there's millionaires who can just fly her anywhere and give her anything she wants. And who are you? Right? It's getting harder and harder as a man to even find the most basic human function of reproduction. Even to just find a woman you can reproduce with, it's becoming more and more difficult. You also couple that with the fact that they've destroyed morality in women also. So when you destroy the morality in men and you destroy how a man should act, and then you destroy how a woman should act, you're both going in the opposite direction. Most women out there are very happy to share a man who's just rich and famous, and they don't care.
It's
right?
interesting.
So if you're the normal guy, there's this rich famous guy with 30 girls. That's 29 dudes who are lonely, and they end up watching porn. And if you have a porn addiction or you have a problem with porn, you have a problem with yourself, because I guarantee if you were the kind of man you're supposed to be, you would have no time for that, and you wouldn't need it.
Okay, so everything he's saying here is true. Okay, so I have a lot of quibbles with Andrew Tate. This is not one of them. Right? What he is saying here is absolutely true. That the big imbalance between men and women, which has been created by the sexual revolution, in which men and women were not expected to marry one another and then pair off one-on-one, has created tremendous imbalances just population-wide. And also, he's correct that obviously you have to be more successful in order to achieve appeal to women in today's day and age, because they have many more options with regard to men, but also because men aren't pairing up one-to-one with women, women aren't pairing up one-to-one with men. That's just statistically reality. Well, what he's saying is right. And you can see this in every time you see a poll where women are saying, I just want a man who's 6 foot and makes $200,000 a year. Like that's like a very tiny percent of the population. But there are a lot of women who are attractive who feel that they can achieve that because, again, there is a global marketplace. What he's saying there is right. Now, there is an element that, again, I think is missing, and that is that if you actually wish to society-wide cure this problem, he's right on the individual level. There's no substitute for excellence and achievement and success and all the rest. I fully agree with that. On a society-wide level, that's not going to solve the problem. On a society-wide level, the only solution to this is a return to the sort of values that build families. In other words, one solution here is become more successful so the attractive girl is attracted to you as opposed to the millionaire 45-year-old who's got a wife. The other solution is inculcate from the time people are young a set of values in which men and women are meant to marry each other and raise children, so that the values you're looking for in the other person are an important component of how you date and marry. Right? That's the part that I always feel like is missing in some of these conversations. As central banks in countries like China, India, and Australia begin transitioning to digital currency, the Federal Reserve has been contemplating the same for the United States. With a digital currency, the government can track every single purchase you make. They can also inflate or deflate the currency as they see fit very, very easily. Times like these are a great reminder to diversify at least a portion of your savings into gold. You can do that with the help of my friends over at Birch Gold. They're who I buy my gold from, so do thousands of other concerned savers. Birch Gold will help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. You do not pay a penny out of pocket. When currencies fail, gold is a safe haven. How much more time does the dollar have? I don't know. Neither do you. So it's worth diversifying at least a little bit into precious metals. Protect your savings with gold today. Birch Gold has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Thousands of happy customers. Text BEN to 989898. Get your free info kit on gold. If a central bank digital currency becomes a reality, it's going to be nice to have relied at least a little bit on a resource that has never been worth zero. Again, text BEN to 989898. The smart investors diversify, particularly when it comes to the unseemliness of the federal government manipulating the currency. Become a smart investor. Text BEN to 989898 and get all your questions answered from my friends over at Birch Gold. Have you ever invested in like a nice jacket or shoes, or maybe even a nice dinner? Well, your betting shouldn't be any different. In fact, you should spend money on your betting because you're spending like 8 hours a night on it. Start investing in your best sleep with Boll and Branch. They make the only sheets that get softer with every wash. Boll and Branch sheets are made from the finest 100% organic cotton threads on earth. They feel buttery to the touch. They're super breathable. They're perfect for both cooler and warmer months. Their signature hem sheets were made with luxurious threads. They're made without pesticides, formaldehyde, or other harsh chemicals. Best of all, Boll and Branch give you a 30-night risk-free trial with free shipping and returns on all orders. You're not going to want to return them because they are excellent. I'm telling you, Boll & Branch product is so good. They make an Afghan blanket that is just fantastic. It's so good that I actually travel with it because I sleep so much better using my Boll & Branch product. Sleep better at night with Boll & Branch sheets. For a limited time, you can get early access to their annual summer event. Use code Shapiro to get 20% off today at bullandbranch.com. That's BOLLAND branch.com. Promo code Shapiro. Exclusions apply. See site for details. Again, it is the best sheets on planet Earth. They are fantastic. You are going to love them. They get better with each and every wash, and they have a great deal right now. Use code Shapiro. Get 20% off today at bullandbranch.com. That's bullandbranch.com. Use promo code Shapiro.
If a black billionaire and a white billionaire meet somewhere, I don't think there's much conversation about race. I don't think...
No.
I don't think there's any racism.
No.
Interesting, no?
They're not that interested in the topic, actually.
They don't care.
Right.
But amongst the lower echelons of the populace, they seem very interested in trying to turn us all on each other.
Yes.
I wonder why that is. And I wonder why they deliberately make laws and push media matters which are designed to do exactly that. I wonder why that is. We can sit, and I have my own theories.
Okay, so the sort of classism argument, that the reason that this is being pushed is on behalf of the upper class elites. He's right in one sense and I think incorrect in another. So he's certainly right that when you go to upper class enclaves, the amount of racism is virtually non-existent because, again, people tend to identify by class more than they do by race. If you go to very poor areas of the United States, very often you see black and white people living together pretty much okay, right? Go to the rural South and you see this actually a fair bit. And if you go to very rich areas like San Francisco, you see very rich black and white people living right next to each other with no actual gap. So why is it that the elite, or what you would call the matrix, are pushing the racism narrative? I don't think that that's necessarily for the preservation of economic power. I think that that is because a lot of those people actively believe that people who are not like them are bad. Like all of them. Like people who are not living in my little San Francisco enclave, they are racist, sexist, bigot, homophobes who despise each other, just as Barack Obama talked about. That the people he was meeting with in San Francisco when he was talking about the bitter clingers, they're all like Barack Obama, but everybody else is actually bad. So it's not that they are doing this to preserve their own power as much as they have this very self-centered view of the world in which they're the only good people. Everyone else is in fact racist, which is why you need racial preferences programs, for example.
So I was a little bit surprised to see Greta Thunberg with Zelensky this morning.
What's interesting to me is this. Firstly, I would never kill myself. Secondly, imagine these people are so detached from reality. Imagine going, you know what we need to do? Brainwave. We need to drum up support for this garbage. Let's take the most loved woman, Greta, and the most loved man, Zelensky, and let's make them meet. Think about the PR. Let's bring a camera. And imagine people sitting around a table going, that's going to really make people support this. Who gives a I don't want to swear. I'm sorry, but some young girl turns up to a war zone who has nothing. Why is she there? What are they going to talk about?
I don't know.
But what's their conversation?
I think she only yells. I don't think she does talk.
I don't understand. Is she going to talk about how the childhood has been stolen from all those million Ukrainian men who have been blown to pieces? Like she talks about childhood being stolen because we drive, cars? I don't think she is. I don't think she's going to mention that.
Not wrong. Correct. I mean, when he talks about the Matrix is, this kind of generalized net between people like the Greta Thunbergs, who really should not be a world famous figure. She was a child when she was exploited for her political point of view, and people like Vladimir Zelensky, who's an actual world leader in the middle of a war. Like that, the obvious imbalance there, but the attempt by the Matrix to paint that as a sort of meeting of equals is ridiculous on its face.
So every survey of female happiness in the West shows just a straight decline since about 1970 till now. Women are becoming less happy in the West. I think it's very obvious. What accounts for that?
How can you be happy when all the men around you aren't men, right? We are the most beautiful union that God has possibly created on the planet. A feminine woman and a masculine man. It's the most beautiful union that can possibly exist. It raises children the best. Both parties are happier. Both parties gain. It's a net positive for everybody. There's no negative. There's no downside. But if you destroy one side of the equation, then the other side is going to be completely and utterly miserable and unhappy. How as a woman can you be happy if you can't find a man who you believe can protect you, provide for you, sticks up for you, has morals, has principles? There's none of those men left. So then what they do is just go from man to man trying to find it. And by the time they've been through enough men to maybe find someone semi-close to it, they've been through too many men to ever be happy. And then you have the absolute destruction of Western society. We talk about why men don't get married anymore. I can tell you why I wouldn't want to get married in America. I don't see the point in being married to a woman who's had so many partners before me that she can't properly pair bond with me and then giving her the opportunity to financially destroy me. I think that would be a bad chess move.
I mean, again, everything he's saying is true. So he should get married and he should be monogamous and have kids. Because the union that actually provides all of this is the marital union. It is not, in fact, cam girls. So many of the things he's saying are absolutely right. As I've said before, I think that Andrew Tate's big gift is that Andrew Tate is very good at diagnosing problems. I think many of his solutions don't meet the test of the problem. I think that very often the solutions are incomplete, or very often the solutions are correct in rhetoric, but not in action. But when it comes to diagnosing problems, I mean, this is the reason he's popular. If he weren't putting his thumb on something real, he wouldn't have millions and millions and millions of followers, obviously. Alrighty, the rest of the show is continuing right now. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll be speaking with foreign policy expert Ian Bremmer. If you're not a member, become a member. Use code Shapiro. Check out for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click that link in the description and join us.